Hey, what's up, podcast family? This week I had a great chat with Tim O'Connor. He's the co founder of Results here in Calgary. Tim has over 30 years of experience helping people and organizations be more effective and productive. Prior to Results, Tim led a corporate training company that delivered productivity, sales, and negotiation skills to employees in some of Canada's best known companies like Canadian Pacific Railway, Shaw, Telus, and Nexen. Tim has also worked in market research in the telecommunications industry here in Canada and in the UK. On the podcast, we talk changes to consumer behavior, dealing with stress, giving, and much, much more. Remember to rate, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Get awesome local leaders and entrepreneur stories each week, jam-packed with their unique insights. Once again, leave me a feedback at joe@codessa.io on some of the stories or questions you want to hear, and I read them all. So make sure you email me. Now to the podcast. Hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Happy to be here.
Well, let's jump right into it. Maybe tell us a bit about your origin story, how you came to be where you are today.
Well, at my age, Joe, that's a long story. So I'll try to give you the short version. I did grow up in Calgary. I've been here since the early 70s. Did my studies here. Lived overseas for a little while. But there had always been entrepreneurs in my family. My father had an electrical contracting business. My father-in-law and my mother-in-law both had their own businesses, and I think I was always destined to be an entrepreneur. I did a stint early in my career with a couple of very large multinational companies, but then I came upon an opportunity with a small business that I was introduced to just through a social acquaintance. And I looked at that business and said, "Wow, I'd like to be part of it." It was a performance improvement and corporate training company at the time, and I approached the owners at that time and said, "Hey, I'd like to be part of this." So I scraped the cash together that I needed to buy in. Left the corporate world and the certainty of a paycheck and a benefits plan and a pension and all of that, and stepped into the world of small business 22 years ago.
You mentioned that your family has some entrepreneur background, and leaving that security of the job to go pursue entrepreneurship. What made you want to jump into that career path?
Yeah, a good question. I think it was a combination of a bit of push and a bit of pull. So the push for me was that I never felt I really fit in a large organization environment. I got quite disillusioned by the bureaucracy and the posturing and games I saw that were being played. People making sure they stayed at the office later than the boss, even if they weren't working, and spending inordinate amount of time on internal presentations that a customer would never see just to make themselves look good within the organization. I just didn't have the patience for that. So that was a lot of the push. And then the pull was just, an opportunity to work directly with people to help them unleash their potential, which is actually still part of the mission of my current company, Unleash Results, which is helping leaders and their businesses unleash the potential that they have. So that was sort of how I made that decision, um, and how I got into the world of performance improvement and trusted advisory.
What was one thing you wish you would have known when you first began this crazy path of entrepreneurship and leadership?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Before becoming an entrepreneur, I don't think I appreciated fully the importance of having a team of high performers, or what I'll call A players. versus having a mix or having mediocre players. Sometimes people will say it's the difference between day and night. I'd say it's the difference between absolute black and the brightness of the brightest sunny day. Because when you have and surround yourself by a team of people who are self starters, who are naturally curious, who have humility, who are willing to go the extra mile, and who hold themselves accountable, your job as a leader is easy. And frankly, you look like a star. But when you have people that are B players or C players or somewhat mediocre, it's hard work, and it takes a ton of time to engage and hold people accountable and suggest what they should be working on and quality checking. And it just sucks so much time and life out of you as a leader. So this experience of mine, we do also espouse in my business as well, is that you really have to take appropriate time to seek out and find really high performers that fit not only the job that you have for them, but your corporate culture, because the payoff is exponential down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a team of great individuals, high performers, and people that fit your culture always there's always a positive ROI to that combination. But that is a challenge. And speaking of challenges, what is maybe a unique challenge, or maybe even a quote unquote failure that you've endured in your path, and how what did you learn from it?
Well, yeah, there's been lots of mistakes and failures, Joe. So don't get me wrong. I probably can't even count them all. If that's what people call the school of hard knocks, then I've been to that school as well. Um, but something I've been thinking a lot about recently is, for us at least, the challenge of outsourcing marketing. We have spent a lot of time and money and effort, probably over the last 15 years, looking for a silver bullet and outsourcing marketing to an agency or a marketing firm or a branding company or a digital company. And what I have learned is that you really have to look to understand your buyer's journey intimately as a leader in the organization, at least for a small business, and really understand that in order to be able to outsource particular activities within that. There really is no silver bullet that you can say, "Gosh, I'm going to pay X number of dollars per month, and then I'm going to have new leads delivered to me, or somebody's going to set up appointments for me, and I just go to them, and it brings new customers." Um, I find that you really have to invest in your own knowledge about your customers, your unique customer journey, and your own marketing and branding. And it's changing, and has changed so much in the last 10 years. I'll give you an example. I have my brother-in-law works for a Honda dealership. He sells Honda vehicles, and he says that now when people arrive at a dealership, over 95% of them already know what vehicle they want, what options they want. And his job is really around financing and maintenance and warranty and so on and so on. That's a huge change in the last 10 or 15 years, when shoppers would go to a car salesperson to try to decide what car to buy. That's the world we live in. Buyers have so much information now that they didn't have before, that the journey is really different.
Yeah, the buyer's journey is something that lots of businesses have to be aware of, and
Yeah.
to help with their marketing.
And what influences a buyer's decisions, right? It's rankings, it's ratings, it's stars, it is referral, for sure. But it's all of those things, and it's multiple interactions with a brand as well.
Absolutely, it's almost giving that value up front, and then that attracts the buyer.
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give somebody, maybe a listener right now, that wants to pursue a career similar to yours?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that question in two parts, Joe. I think, first of all, anyone who wants to be in a small business needs to have, I'd say, a broad base of business understanding. So you have to be a bit of a generalist. You have to understand enough about finance and your accounting numbers. You have to understand enough about your marketing, about delivery of whatever product or service you have, et cetera, et cetera. So, a small business owner or a small business leader does need to be a bit of a generalist. If you're speaking specifically about my industry, which broadly is business consulting or advisory services, then I think if somebody wanted to get into that business, they should first go and work somewhere earlier in their career, work for a lot of different organizations, and in particular, have an experience as a manager, because in order to be, I think, to be successful in giving advice to other leaders or other managers, you want to have had that experience yourself, and have credibility to be able to say, "Hey, I know what it's like to sit in your chair when you're trying to performance manage someone or make a hire, or have to let someone go." I think you want to make sure you have that experience firsthand as well. Maybe I'll add one more, Joe. So thirdly, in my business in particular, we are in, again, broadly speaking, we are in the change management business. So, we don't work with individuals and organizations who are extremely happy with where they are currently. We work with individuals and organizations that feel they want to change something. Sometimes they don't know what it is that they want to change, or how to make the change. Sometimes it's just an intuition that's saying, I don't think we're getting enough out of this leadership team or these employees or this company, and we need to change something. Maybe we don't know what it is. So it's really important in the world of helping people change, that you understand the change process. And
Mm.
that's something that I didn't appreciate enough when I started in this business, and I'm always learning about.
You mentioned being a generalist. I think that's so true, especially if you're in the small business, because you wear so many hats. And what unique skill would you say that's helped you become successful?
I'm smiling a little bit when I hear you ask that question, Joe, because my mind first goes to, is being lucky a skill? Because if you ask me, what has helped you become most successful, I'd start with luck. And I would say, look, I've been really blessed in so many ways to have run into the right people, to live in a country like Canada, a city like Calgary, and to have opportunities that so many people just don't have, and I didn't earn those. So luck is number one. I think I'm willing to work hard, and I know that sounds cliche, but when I was in my teens, I used to spend my summers working on a cattle ranch west of Calgary, and that's where I really learned what hard work was, because in the summer you're up from dawn till dusk, working with the livestock and maintaining the equipment, and driving the tractor or whatever. And how long daylight is in Calgary in the summertime. So you're up you're up at 5:30, and you might get back by 10 at night, right?
Wow.
And for people in that industry, in the agriculture industry, that is a lifestyle. It's more than just a job; it's a lifestyle, and I have a massive respect for those people. Um, but yeah, I think that just getting up every day and getting going is very important. And I hope that the generations to come continue to see that. I suppose also, people have told me that I tend to look at things in a very holistic and systemic way. So, rather than looking at a decision or an opportunity um, in a discrete way, I tend to like to ask questions about, okay, what are the long-term impacts of this, and what are the systemic impacts of this decision, across our organization or across our community. So I think people appreciate that perspective that I bring to the table.
Yeah, I do agree that luck, in particular, has a lot of impact in the entrepreneur's journey or a business leader's journey. There's always a sense of serendipity that happens on your path. Has there been any specific resources that's helped you along the way?
Yeah, Joe, for the past 10 years, sorry, it's probably longer than that now. It's probably close to 12 years. I've been a part of a business owner peer group.
Mhm.
This is a group that I access through the Entrepreneurs Organization, also known as EO. And I've been in the same forum group now for that entire time. This is a group of business owners who come together, even though they have busy schedules, they come together for a half day a month, every month, and really act as in a way, a board of advisors for each other, not just for our business lives, but for our personal lives as well. And I can't tell you how invaluable that's been for me over the past 11 or 12 years, not only helping my business to grow, but in helping me grow as a person and as a leader. I think these peer groups are just invaluable. In fact, even in my business right now, it's one of the things that we've done in response to COVID is we've launched a whole series of leader circles that we're making available to the Alberta community as a way of trying to help out. So we facilitate, our business execution specialists are facilitating these leader circles now that are held obviously virtually for the time being through Zoom meetings, where business leaders can come together and really table any topic and support each other and help each other through that means.
Community, like you're saying, is very important when you're on your path, because sometimes it could be lonely being a owner or a business leader as well. Would you say mentorship would be a good piece to that?
Yeah, if you asked me who was your mentor, I can't specifically, other than maybe my father, I can't specifically say I've had a business mentor. But these peer groups are a little bit like mentorship, only it's two way,
Mhm.
right? So it goes both ways. From 1 month I might be the mentor, helping one of my colleagues in the peer group, and the next month I might be the mentee, receiving the mentorship. So yeah, it's a nice approach to that mentorship.
Has there been anything recently that you've read or listened to that's really inspired you?
Um, yeah, I was thinking about that, and again, one of the things we've done at Results is 6 weeks ago we launched a webinar series that's held every Thursday morning. It's free, and we've been able to attract some really phenomenal speakers in the areas of business and leadership and psychology. And just last week, we had a speaker by the name of Sarah Noel Wilson. And she has a master's degree in leadership development and is an expert in stress and the physiological impact of stressful situations and how it impacts specifically our interactions and our communications with others. And what she had to share just blew me away about how as human beings, our physiology changes when we're in stressful situations, which directly impacts our ability to think and gives us less access to higher order parts of our brain, gets us back to our amygdala, our lizard brain, our fight or flight part of our brain. and really shuts down our ability to be empathic, to be a good listener, to think creatively, and so on and so on. So that actually, I could have listened to Sarah. Was only with us for an hour. I could have listened to Sarah for the entire day. She just had so much information to share. And those webinars, if any of your listeners are interested, they can go and register for them on our website or watch the ones we've had in the past. So Sarah Noel Wilson again is her name, and she was on the May 14th episode.
Oh, very cool. I'm writing that down right now. Speaking of stressful situations, I mean, lots of our listeners are business owners as well. How have you adjusted to the pandemic and the whole COVID situation going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that we have just a phenomenal leadership group. So I am part of a 4-person leadership group for our business, and we were able to come together very quickly and agree on some fundamentals. And those fundamentals include the fact that we're just here to help. That was our guiding light. It's like, let's reach out to the community and just say, we're here to help. And it's not about what you can pay or what you can afford, or we're going to send you an invoice. It's about, let's just have a conversation. We're here to help. And that's really what led to these things like the leader circles that I mentioned, the webinar series that I mentioned, some one-on-one coaching that's going on right now with our consultants in the community. And our belief is that if we can help business leaders, that's our forte, that's our sandbox. If we can help business leaders bridge to the new next, which is a term I've just started hearing this past week, the new next. If we can help Alberta business leaders bridge to the new next, then in turn they can help their employees and their communities and so on, and it becomes a bit of a cascading effect through all of our province and literally all of Western Canada. So yeah, that's the biggest change I think for us, is that we have gone to the market and said, don't worry about what it costs. We're just here to help.
Stepping back into your career, what's one common myth about your profession or industry that you really want to put to bed?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so. If I use the word consultants, and I'm not particularly tied to that word, but lots of people use that to describe our industry, business consulting. Um, I think there's a perception in small and mid-sized companies that they can't afford it and it's too expensive, or that it's overpriced. And I think for those small and mid-sized companies that have engaged with us, what they found is it's actually quite inexpensive for the value that they get. You look at the expertise of the people that we have on our team in particular, and you look at the years of experience they have, and the way in which they use our system to help to grow organizations and to grow leaders. Um, if you had to hire those skills, you'd be paying 5 to 10 times as much as engaging with a service like ours that can help really jumpstart your business in a much quicker way. I know this sounds a little bit self-serving, but I get up every morning um, just inspired by the stories that our clients have had um, as a result of us working with them and what they've been able to achieve and do. And the testimonials that we have are just so powerful. They get me excited every single day.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why a lot of us wake up in the morning just to see our clients smile and the impact we can have on people's lives. So, for you personally, or it could be professionally, what's something that you're curious about right now?
Yeah, I've been pursuing a curiosity and an interest in storytelling for the last year, and I've been quite drawn to the structure and elements of a good story, not simply for the fact that I want to tell good stories or enjoy reading or hearing good stories, but because I see a really strong link between great leaders and their ability to use story as a tool to engage and inspire their people. And it's somewhat counterintuitive. You think that human beings are rational and should be most influenced by facts and figures and evidence, where the reality tells us and psychology tells us that we are actually inspired and persuaded more by story. Um, the phrase that I've heard many times is human beings are wired for story. And it's a tool that I think every leader needs in their toolkit to understand how to build and how to tell an inspiring story to help move their organizations forward. So that's a bit of an endeavor I've been working on for the last year, to the point that I'm just completing. Last night I completed a certificate program at Simon Fraser in Vancouver on building story.
Well, I think you're doing a great job telling your story on the podcast.
Okay, thanks.
So, how, from your perspective, how has Calgary changed from when you first started to where it is today?
Well, that's a bit of a loaded question, because I'm going to go all the way back to when I arrived as a very young person in Calgary. So I was born in Southern Ontario, and at that time, all my family, including my parents, my sister, everybody I knew was born and from Southern Ontario. I have this distinct memory. I was 6 years old, and I remember cresting the hill east of town on the Trans Canada Highway in a station wagon packed full of everything we owned as a family. And we came over the crest of the hill, and there below us was Calgary. And what has changed is that in 1972, the Calgary Tower literally towered over the city. The next highest building, I think, was the Sheraton Hotel, which might have been 15 stories. And it was very iconic when you looked at the city from afar in those days, to see this tower, which I think at that time was called the Husky Tower, if you look at your history of the city, because it was just so amazing to see this tower sticking out of the middle of the prairies with the mountains in behind. So obviously things have changed in Calgary since then. From a lot of angles, you can't even see the Calgary Tower because of the other office towers that are around it. I think to maybe more relevantly answer your question, Joe. I think we're obviously aware of the dependence of Calgary and Alberta on carbon-based energy in our economy. It has shifted somewhat. I think if you look at the data for Alberta, I think I think it's gone from over a third of our entire economy of the province to closer to 25%. It's difficult to measure because there's so many related industries. You could argue that hotels and restaurants in Fort McMurray are actually part of the energy industry too, right? So it's difficult to measure all of the downstream impacts, but there has been a bit of a shift. It's not enough, obviously, but I have started to see Calgary shift away from strictly energy and start to look at other services like technology, life sciences, financial industries, creative industries like film and alternative energy. That those are all good. Those are all good signs. Agriculture and ag sciences as well. I've also seen the departure quite substantially of manufacturing. Early in my career, I worked. There was a large volume manufacturing um, segment in Calgary. I worked for a large telecom company that had a plant in Northeast Calgary, and we were producing products, widgets that went out the back door every day and were shipped around the world. all of that has been outsourced, or had been outsourced to lower cost countries years and years and years ago. And I can't think of many, if any, um, what I'd call volume manufacturers in Calgary anymore. Um, even companies like Smart Technologies, as much as their head office is still here in Calgary, I don't believe their manufacturing is here. I think it was outsourced a long time ago. Maybe it was never here. I'm not entirely positive. So not seeing a lot of volume manufacturing. So I think we the future of the city has to continue to be moving away from carbon based energy. I think everybody knows it's somewhat of a sunset industry. It's just a matter of getting the timing right, and that's what the debates are about all the time. But we need to continue to leverage uh, the two advantages I think we have here in Calgary. One is the highly skilled labor force that we have, and the other is the entrepreneurial mindset. And I'm a firm believer that Alberta has the strongest entrepreneurial mindset in this country, and that can't be taken for granted or restricted.
So this question is a little bit trickier. What's one question that you never get asked that you wish you would be asked?
Um, yeah, I think I mentioned, Joe, before we started that I saw that question on your list and I was struggling a bit. I'd like to be asked maybe more often what my personal core mission is in life, because it is something I've thought a lot about. And for me, it's helping people live with no regrets. And I think it's very tightly aligned to the work we do at Results, to help people unleash the potential. One of the things that makes me sad is hearing people speak and use the words, "Oh, if only I'd have dot dot dot," right? If only I'd have done this differently or done that differently or whatever. It's not to say that we don't all make bad decisions from time to time, but I'd like to do everything I can in my life to help people really be the best that they can be, and have the confidence to do that. And that's what I really try to aspire to all the time, just helping people to do that.
Yeah, living with no regrets is a powerful life mission. Just out of curiosity, do you think regrets manifest in decisions that were bad or decisions that were not made?
I think not making a decision is making a decision.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the status quo is generally an option in every decision that we make in life. Not all, but often it is. So yeah, deciding not to decide or procrastinating is certainly part of that. Mhm.
Well, Tim, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. You've had so much gold nuggets of insights for our listeners. Where can our listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, happy to connect with any of your listeners. The Unleash Results website, you can reach me through that. There's a contact page there. And I'm on all the social channels as well. I think on Twitter, I'm Tim J. O'Connor, or on LinkedIn, you can find me as well. So happy for anyone to reach out.
And you mentioned the webinars; those are
They're
still going
actually
on.
they're actually they're actually Thursday morning, Joe, at 10
Oh,
a.m. All the information is on the Unleash Results website for those. One name that maybe you don't know, but some of your listeners will, is Tom Peters, who wrote In Search of Excellence back in the 1980s. He's written over 19 books on businesses and success in business and change. Um, he's by far the best-selling author we've had on these webinars, and he's scheduled for the 28th. So I'm not sure when this podcast goes out, but he's scheduled to be joining us on the 28th, which is a little over a week from now.
thanks, Tim. So yeah, I usually like to end the podcast with a guest. The guest usually asking a question to the audience, or maybe even a quote or a story to leave them with the interview.
Yeah. Again, I know I mentioned stories, so you're putting me on the spot here a little bit, but maybe I'll just leave with a thought on giving. Um, in times like these, you know, we're all, I think, in a bit of a defensive mode, and we are feeling regretful about loss. Loss of a loved one, loss of in some cases, loss of a job, loss of a livelihood, or loss of our normal life, which may be disrupted for a very long time. I think all we can do is look forward and ask ourselves, what can we do? But maybe more importantly, what can we give to help others through these situations? There's always going to be people that are worse off than us and better off than us. But I'm a strong believer in the axiom that givers get. So just ask yourself what you can give and how you can give, because we all have unique talents and unique perspectives that can help someone else out there.